Well, the weather for the whole of the south of England will continue as it has for the next few weeks. It's going to be hot and moist, with temperatures rising steadily as time goes on. There's a chance of steamy moments as we move into the... sod it. We never wanted to do this. We never wanted to be weathermen and women making innuendos about hot atmospheres and drizzly countries. We didn't want to be child-friendly. We didn't want to bang on about being for over 18s only. We want to talk about our sexy adventures. We want to be lifestylers, leaping from bush to bush as we sail down the rivers of British sex clubs and mountains of crazy experiences. The cheeky purple mamba, the liquid silk pumped liberally into our hand, the rodeo classic brief harness complete with Tantus curve, the Enjoy Pure One stainless steel dildo, the hot octopus digit, the ever so short messages on Fab Swingers, the sexy friends on Twitter, and the mighty vanilla alternative. With my best girlie by my side, we'd swing, swing, swing.
Get in the gym or to your car. With our advice, you could go far. We'll fuck things up when we make mistakes. And talk about our sexy dates. It's getting hard for this to rhyme. Just as well, 'cause it's bed hopping time.
Welcome to episode 77 of the Bed Hoppers podcast. My name's Mr. H.
And I'm Mrs. H.
This is a special episode today. In fact, it's a Bed Hoppers Fack Off special. And this time around, we're going to be looking at what it's like to go to a club.
Yeah.
Now, we recognise that not everyone can go to a club at the moment. In
No.
fact, a lot of people can't go anywhere.
And we haven't been able to for some time.
In fact, the best club that we've been to recently is our front room.
Yeah, that's true.
We've tried to turn the lights on and off to simulate the disco. I followed Mrs. H around with my trousers around my ankles in an attempt to simulate the single guy experience that you get in clubs. And I also stuck names on all of our bottles of drink that we had. It's bottle 43, please. Yep, great. As they hand over your thing. It just didn't work. It wasn't the same experience.
Given away spoilers here about what our club's like.
So we thought whilst we were all dreaming about going to a club, we'd bring on some special guests, very sexy special guests, and you'll hear about more them in a moment. And we'd try and talk through what it's like to go for a club. So if you're thinking about going to a club for the first time, this is hopefully the episode for you. So this will give you a bit of background about what it's like going to a club, what you should think about, all the good stuff, all the good kind of advice that you might need. So without further ado, hit the thing.
We've got something that's just for you. Holy shit, it's an interview.
So we've got a couple of special guests with us today. In fact, we've got a couple of special guests.
A couple of couples.
Where are they? Well, we're talking to two of them, and we've muted two of them.
Why have we muted them?
Yeah, it's really because they are uncontrollable, and it's probably easier just to...
Yeah, I mean, we can see them at the moment, and she's doing some wild, hand gestures down there. I don't know what she's doing.
Well, so who are the special guests?
The special guests.
Yes.
So the ones that we're talking to are two of my favourite human beings, and Bradford and Angela from By the By.
Oh, welcome,
You're right.
guys.
The second intro was so much better than the first one.
Imagine if I do another couple of takes, you'll just be like king and queen of the world.
If she does another couple of takes, we'll all be asleep. I tell you, it's going to take so long to
and
get to that point.
we might just start day drinking, and then it'll just be like a descent into madness. So
yeah, and there are other special guests.
The other special guests who are being very quiet, thankfully, because I think they would. Are the beautiful, oh God, what are they called on? I don't know what to say their names are.
You don't know what to say their names are?
I don't know what they're known as on Twitter.
What did I write down on my bit of paper?
I can't read your writing.
Because I knew you were going to ask
You've
this.
written down top tits.
No. I wrote down top tips. However...
Oh, tips!
Can top tips be my ringtone? Top tips.
They are naughty and rocket.
Right, okay.
Right?
Yes.
There we go.
People as well.
There we go. See, they are on silent, but they are watching this as it happens. So if we get distracted, then that's probably why. That, and we have the attention.
If I get distracted, I blame Naughty and Rocket.
Agreed.
Because they're very distracting.
Yeah, Naughty and Rocket and their good friend Janine.
Oh, Janine just made an appearance.
Janine.
So we've brought Bradford and Angela on the show with us today because we wanted them to be part of our Bedhoppers Fack Off series, which is all about the regular questions that we get sent through in the post and on email and on Twitter and all the other places where questions can be sent. So the question that we're going to attempt to answer with them and using their extreme expertise is around going to a club or a resort for the first time.
Do we get to go to this club with Bradford and Angela?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, but
That'll
not
be
now
fun, then.
because...
Time out. Time out. Club and resort are two very different expectations.
Correct. Also, I have some clarification I need to know. You said the post. Do people actually send you letters?
Well, it just sounded like the right thing to say, to be fair. And
They send them by carrier pigeon.
yes, we get the occasional smoke signal. In fact, I think it was actually some person that we found rifling through our bins that had the question for us rather than an actual item in the post.
Oi, Kevin, get out of our bins!
As Mrs. H goes out clanging the bin lids together to frighten Kevin away.
Well, we don't get to scale off like raccoons and things, so just Kevin's.
Just Kevin's, really. So you're right, they are two different things, which is why we're going to speed through them in two very small sections, I guess. So I think clubs are probably the one that we get asked about the most, and if we get a chance to cover a little bit about going to a resort, we'll slip into that as well, if that's okay.
Oh my God, slipping into things.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds moist.
That's something to listen to.
Exactly. So, we're assuming, moving swiftly onwards. Yeah, I'm trying to podcast a little bit. So
You're trying really hard, but we're all really trying to bring you down, aren't we?
you're not trying to bring me down. It's just you're trying to keep me off track.
We're trying to bring you up, baby.
You do that naturally.
Oh, shut up and tell me more.
Oh. So we're assuming that we're out of the horrible COVID situation and that someone's actually able to visit a club. So, yeah, which in the future may well happen again. What's the first thing that people should think about if they're going to a club for the first time? What's the sort of thing that they should have in mind?
Is their partner also willing to go to said club?
Does their partner know that they're going to a sex club?
Honestly, though, we laugh about that, but we have been at the club and a couple will come in and one knows what's going on. The other one thinks they're just going to a house party or something like that, and they actually don't know they're going to a swingers club. So it sounds funny, but it does happen.
So having the conversation first is probably the first thing that you need to be doing.
It's probably wise, yes.
Okay.
This is the last thing you want to spring on a partner. It's the equivalent of going to the hospital and somebody going, oh, yeah, by the way, we're having a baby. Like today. Not something you want sprung on you.
Yeah, I've not been getting fat. I'm just about to drop a baby.
Don't drop babies. Jeez. Yeah, I would say have that conversation with your partner that's what you both want to do. And not to self-plug here, but we recently did a couple of podcasts doing a worksheet on this, on things that you should do before you go to the club. And I kind of love that we're doing this podcast with you guys now in that we can discuss, you're at the club, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've had the conversation. And you've both agreed that you are indeed going to a sex club. What sort of thing might you expect when you get there?
So I'm going to even derail this a bit more. Sorry there, buddy. In that there's a lot of things you want to talk about with your partner before you go. And things like, do we want to go for a specific party? Do we want to get dressed up? Because a lot of these clubs are going to have some sort of theme night. And there might be theme nights that you and your partner aren't interested in, and there might be theme nights that you're very much interested in. So to take an example, Our Secret Spot here in Sydney, Australia, they'll have parties that are everything from sexy in his shirt, which might really do it for some people and might not for others. They have the pendulum parties, which are about bisexuality for both genders and might really do it for some people, but not for others. And then they have things like Glow Party, which is all about like a black light kind of more neon artistic thing. And so I think it's important for the people who are going to check out the website, see what's going on, and see if there's a party theme that they would be really excited about, because it's important to go and know what you're getting into.
And further to that as well, while you're looking at party themes and whatnot on the websites, take a look around the website itself and see what information you can glean from it as far as dress code expectations, of course, hours, costs, that kind of thing. But most clubs will also have an FAQ on their website that will answer a lot of your questions about the club itself. So definitely, I would suggest taking the time to just look around their site and see what you can find out from that.
And then also think about like what you're going to do that night. So many of us don't go straight from home and straight into a club. We want to do dinner on the way. We want to make a night of it. And I'm often reminded of a comedian that I saw when I was in college that said, if you take a lady out for dinner and she orders a steak, you're not having sex that night. If she orders a salad, you are. And I'll say that also goes for the menfolk involved too, in that if you have some very heavy, like you don't want to go to a swingers club after having a bowl full of gnocchi. They're going to sit in your stomach like lead pellets. And the last thing you want to do is have sex when you've got a stomach full of gnocchi.
Well, you say this. I can speak from experience in this,
I did wonder
realm.
if this was going to rear its head.
You know, the last thing you want to do is eat a full pizza and then get in the car and be offered some head. I mean, it's
because you know what would
happen.
happen.
You brought it up. Yeah, like I was going to be polite and not bring it up because it's your fucking podcast, and I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah, but you were hoping, weren't you, that it was going to end there?
So hoping.
This seemed like it was aimed at getting me to talk about this again, but it's okay.
I mean, you should just get it out there now and just address
Master
it.
manipulator, I am.
Yeah. Well, I think it is true that you do need to think about what you're doing before then. The other thing I was going to mention actually is that before you even pick your club, it's worth having a look at the various sites to see if there's any reviews of the club and see whether it's your type of club, because they're all a little bit different and all operate in a slightly different way. So it's worth having a look to see whether you're going to some sort of derelict warehouse or whether you're going to or going to a place that's a little bit more upmarket, and you'll get a good sense of whether the club is any good from the reviews and what people have said about it.
Something that always really bothered me before we went to our first club, and I know it's something that we get tons of questions about, is always the expectations of what you wear to a club. And I appreciate it's probably something that's on your list anyway, but it's the one thing that always is guaranteed to like spiral me out of control. I'm like, what do I wear? I just don't know. And that's really genuinely what people worry about, because you have to dress to leave the house and kind of look like outdoorsy dress, but then at the same time you want something that's, you know, appropriate for where you're going and potentially going for dinner first. So it's a real minefield about what you wear.
So it's really funny because there's a lot of podcasters out there who are lifestyle podcasters, and I will promise you that everyone has an opinion on what do you wear to a club. And I'm going to say that most of them are fucked.
What, when they get to the club?
That's a good outfit choice then.
Before they even get to the club, and not in a good way. Look, there are two things that you really have to make sure of, barring the fact that you're wearing something that is okay by the club standards. So admittedly, there are clubs that don't want you to wear singlets, don't want you to wear ripped jeans, don't want you to wear, etc. There are rules on the club. So as long as you follow whatever rules of the club you're going to, you have to worry about two things. The first is, do I feel comfortable in what I'm wearing? Do I like how I look? That's problem number one. Solve that and you're going to be set. The second thing is, would I be attracted to me wearing what I'm wearing?
This has turned a little bit Silence of the Lambs.
Put the lotion on the skin.
Would you do
or
me?
else, like, because we see a lot of other podcasters suggesting things that you don't wear jeans, don't wear a t-shirt. Honestly, I've gone on first dates wearing a pair of jeans that I feel like I fucking look great in, and a t-shirt that I know like shows off the good parts of my body,
But now, admittedly, most clubs will say no jeans, no t-shirts.
Right.
But it is, like you said, you want to be comfortable and you want to be confident in what you're wearing, and you want to know that you look good. And so it's hard to say that like you should wear XYZ, a particular style or whatever, because it can vary from person to person what that is. And some people may say for the women, you should, show your cleavage or whatever. But there's a lot of people who don't and are very sexy. Like, you don't have to be sexy. It is about confidence, and it's about looking good and feeling good, and whatever that is, I would say.
Yeah, agreed. And that whole thing that you have to do something, that you don't have to do something. You have to feel good. You have to feel comfortable. You have to feel confident.
It's not very sexy if you're like tugging at your dress all night, or trying to like resituate because something's not sitting right. Like that's just not sexy. So you want to be comfortable.
Yeah, I've worn outfits in the past where I've been like, oh, this was a poor choice because I don't feel like I look my best in it, or it doesn't fit quite right, and it can completely ruin your mood, and you'll just might as well not bother going.
The reason it didn't fit quite right is because we had pizza beforehand.
Well, I mean, the whole night was ruined anyway if you had pizza.
Yeah, exactly.
True. Look, I'm going to stick by what Angela and I both said on what you should wear. But if you're one of those people who really wants, like, no, you have to tell me what to wear. You have to tell me what to wear. Like, you can never go wrong, ladies. You can never go wrong with an LBD. A well-styled little black dress with great earrings, some sort of, like, if you're wearing a choker necklace or some sort of simple pendant necklace, something very simple, very, like,
just
standard.
Go classy.
Go classic. Yeah, classic and classy. And for guys, if you're wearing a pair of chinos with a button-up shirt, that's something that's very, it's very classic. It's not going to pop you out of the crowd, but at the same time, sometimes it's good not to be pulled out of the crowd, because it's very easy to be, stand out in a negative way. Rather than a positive way. And the only other thing I would comment on is underwear. On the off chance that you do go to a club and you do get down to your knickers, your pants,
your knickers,
thinking of you, Mrs. H, then, make sure that they're not ratty, old, nasty underwear, boys. The number of times I've been somewhere and there's more than 3 holes in their underwear, one for the waist and one for each leg. Remember, there's not supposed to be any more holes.
That's a horrible image.
It is.
Ratty old pants.
Ratty old pants. Yep.
And the other thing I would say for women, if you're going to talk about underwear and whatnot, a lot of people think, and this is an interesting position just when you're just starting out and you're just dipping your toes in, you don't know where you're going to go with things. Because some women, I would say many women, have lingerie that they feel sexy in and they feel good in, but you may not. Or you may think, oh, I've had this for a while and I want something new. Admittedly, lingerie can be quite expensive, unless you're doing some online shopping and digging around for stuff, but it can be very expensive. And so before you invest a lot of money in lingerie that you may or may not wear more than once, I would just, if you have something that you feel really good in and something that's really nice, then definitely wear that. But otherwise, just a nice bra and panties. It doesn't have to be like a super fancy lingerie set. Just nice bra and panties that you look good in, you feel good in. If there's a particular color that complements you really well, then wear that. But it doesn't have to be something like super, super expensive for your first night out.
Agreed.
I found a good tip for me was taking something with me to maybe change into once I got there.
Yeah.
Because the problem I always had was that the underwear was amazing, but then trying to find a dress that kind of covered up with the various like neck things and straps and stuff, it just didn't sit right and it just looked weird. So I would inevitably end up taking a little bag with me and having a swift change of clothes if I felt like it once I got there.
Yeah, that's a good point. We do that a lot.
Yeah.
Because like you said, if otherwise you may end up with like bra bits and other bits sticking out from underneath your dress, or the lines don't look right or something like that. So yeah, it's good to be able to change into something.
And let's actually take it the next step. So where if you're folks that go to the club quite regularly, and like, I think that guys have it a little harder than women, because and not like that, but in the fact that oftentimes, like, I'm just looking at Mrs. H there, and she's got that look in her eyes like, women have it so much harder.
No, I just like hearing you say harder.
We have difficulty standing out. Like, women have all this great variety of lingerie, this great variety of bras and panties, this great variety of clothing that really shows off their assets. Whereas men, what are we stuck with? We're stuck with pants, jeans, chinos, whatever, and trousers and shirts. That's it. And if you're wearing a button-up shirt, that's it. It's like, wah, wah, that's all you've got. You've got different colors and patterns. Guys, I'm going to say, if it's something that you want to get into, leather looks good on everyone. And if you get a pair of leather pants, and I know that everybody assumes that what I'm thinking is the leather pants that are a second skin, and I'm not at all. I've got a pair of leather jeans. They're basically a cut of a normal pair of jeans, but they're solid leather. I have worn them out to dinner. I feel comfortable in them. I look good in them. I like the way I look in them. And leather jeans and a nice button-up shirt is a great way to look. And if you stand out, you're not so stand out that people are like, what the fuck's wrong with that guy on the bus? I've had that look as well.
You're right, though. Like, guys don't really have near the selection of lingerie, even dress down types of clothing. They don't have near as much.
Yeah, I agree.
But
although a man in a suit, oh my God, that does it for me every time. But I appreciate you may not want to go out in a suit.
I will say the number of times we've gone to, so OSS does Our Secret Spot, OSS, they do a masquerade night. I always like to wear a solid gray 3-piece suit.
Nice.
With my mask. And there's something really, I'm going to say eyes wide shut, even though that was a horrendous film. But there's something sexy about that kind of polished, but
I think a man can look absolutely amazing in just a good suit. Like, it does it for me every time.
I think even just playing with the concept of the suit, so wearing like braces or Bradford wears a bow tie occasionally, looks stunning as ever. But it just
more.
But little touches like that can really bring a bit of a difference and make things a little bit more playful. Or having some funky shoes. I know that Naughty on who's remaining very silent here because he's on mute.
He's muted.
Yeah, exactly.
He's been told he's got to stay silent.
Has some amazing shoes that we've seen him rock up in and really set the what he's wearing off.
Strong shoe game. In fact, Bradford's got some good shoes.
Well, it's one of those things that you look. It's really funny because you don't want to spotlight yourself. The last thing you want to do is be, when you walk into a room, everybody turns their head and looks at you, because that's a very dangerous place to be in. Because while we often think that that's where you want to be, what you want is an item that people will comment on.
Yes.
You don't want to be like, and trust me, I am the guy that comes into the club wearing the Pac-Man full 3-piece suit and the LED shoes. I'm also that guy, but I'm not
New Year's, though.
always that guy. But you want something that people will come up and give you, which goes into the next stage once you're at the club. You want to give people a reason to talk to you. Flirting is hard, and we often forget that. And I think for many of us who have been in long-term relationships, we don't know how to flirt, and we forget. The best thing to do is to give people an in. And so if you have a clever piece of clothing or something that's a bit different, that gives people permission to come up and say, I like what you're wearing. And that starts that conversation, that breaks that ice.
So something like taking my pet lobster to the club would be a good...
Absolutely. Pinchy.
So we've moved into the realms of actually getting into the club then. What sort of things might people expect once they get through those doors?
It's going to be dark. I think that has surprised a lot of people. It's going to be dark. Oftentimes it's not going to be pitch black, but it's going to be low light.
Yeah.
There's going to be music playing. If you're like Angela and I, that music is going to be from a different generation, a much younger generation.
Not always, but sometimes.
It's there's going to be a lot of people, I'll say, milling about, but not in a negative way.
I would also say, though, that what you experience when you get into the club is also very regional, because we've gone to clubs here in Australia, we've been to clubs in the US, we've been to clubs in Europe, and the style of the clubs, the way they generally operate is kind of different in the different areas. So I think that's that is going to change as well. Or yeah, and again, doing some research beforehand will give you an idea as to what to expect. But yeah, I would say generally, overall, most of the clubs are a bit lower lighting. You'll have music. You'll have people that are kind of either standing around, sitting around, socializing and chatting. You'll have, and a lot of clubs will have a dance area. So you might have people that are dancing if they want to.
Sometimes they have pole areas, don't they, as well?
Yeah.
Like,
Most clubs, I would say, at least here in Australia, are BYO.
Yes.
So definitely something to look at before you go, whether you need to bring your own alcohol or if they provide it or sell it.
So the first thing I would do is, if you're a first timer to a club, and Angela and I still do this if we go to a club that we've never been to before, ask for a tour. Don't be shy. You want to know the, air quotes, lay of the land. You want to know what you're getting yourself into.
Plus,
because go ahead.
So going on the tour as a newbie is a good way to meet other new people in the same situation, but also gives you a bit of a, if you're being taken around and shown the club, other people see that you are new and are much more likely to, that gives them another in to have that conversation with you.
And a decent club will offer you a tour, I think, anyway. As a new member to their club, potentially they want your custom, and they will give you a tour, and they'll give you some kind of do's and don'ts and rules, and try and hopefully reassure you about things like consent and, etiquette and all those kinds of things, which are important. And I think a club that doesn't offer you that, I actually feel a little bit wary of sometimes, because it implies anything goes. So, but anyway, you're right. Different clubs have different kind of expectations and rules.
Can I just say, I get so turned on when you say words like consent and etiquette.
I caught that.
Etiquette.
You put the emphasis on a different syllable, and it's
very sexy.
It's very sexy. I'm just saying.
Shall I elucidate for your pleasure?
But yeah, there are clubs, and we've already hinted at this before, but there are clubs with very different rules. Some clubs have rules where you have to be nude to be in certain areas.
Yeah.
Some clubs have rules where you have to be nude by a certain time. Some clubs have wet areas, spas, saunas, pools, swimming pools, and some don't. It's very important to know what you're getting into before you go. This is not oh my gosh, I just Googled it, this is the closest one. Like Angela and I would do that. But like, if this is your first time going to a club, know what you're getting into. Know what you need to have on you in order to go into these locations. And then when you take the tour, take a mental note of where these locations are, and am I allowed to be here with my drink? Am I allowed to be here and be clothed, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
With or without my partner, yeah.
Would you say that knowing is half the battle?
Yeah, I would. And remembering is the other half.
Yeah.
Oh, which brings me to another point I would definitely recommend is don't drink too much on your first night. Because you want to be cognizant enough to, get through the night. And also you probably want to remember it the next day. So I would definitely suggest maybe drinking some to be comfortable, but not too much. There is social lubrication, and then there is, oh dear God, why is that human still at this club?
AKA
and we
cunted.
have seen both.
Yeah, because we've never been cunted in a club, have we? No.
No, not us, not at all.
It is one of those things that you want to be the person that everybody wants to be around. You don't want to be the person that everybody goes and gets security to ask to leave.
And we have seen clubs eject people who are very intoxicated, and I'm glad they do that. Our
Secret Spot has done that.
Yeah.
So as a side story, our Secret Spot, they didn't eject this fellow, but he left. At one point he left, and his partner comes down and goes, "Where did my partner go?" And everybody was like, "I don't know. Where is he?" So she was like, "I have to find him." So we did this quick tour of the club, couldn't find him anywhere. He was nowhere. And she goes, "He has to be somewhere. I have all of his clothes."
Oh my God.
This poor fellow got fucking wasted and then walked naked 4 blocks to their Airbnb.
Oh my God.
He called his partner from their Airbnb and said, "Hey, I'm back at the Airbnb." She's like, "All your clothes are here." He's like, "Yeah, could you bring them? I need them."
That's
Don't be that guy.
I remember something that I did, I hadn't considered about a club, which has just popped into my head. I don't think, and this was naive of me, I don't think I realised about the mobile phone policies in clubs. Not that I want to go around taking pictures of things, so I don't, but I get quite panicky being away from my mobile in case I get calls that I need to answer and that kind of thing. But most often clubs will make you put your phone away and not have it out in, communal areas and whatnot. So it's just something to bear in mind.
It ends up being that it's not because people distrust you, but it's because that people can't be trusted. No, it's a safety thing. It's for your safety, not necessarily everybody else's.
Plus, it helps keep the conversation going.
Yeah,
it encourages you
because
to interact.
all of us, right now, I want to look at my phone and ignore you two cunts completely. But Angela's like, no, Bradford, that's rude.
Well,
meanwhile, I'm looking at the puppy and ignoring.
That's true. Angela is ignoring you because of the puppy who is eating your strings.
I know, that's fine.
The other thing to consider if you're thinking about going to a club is to be prepared and take the right equipment. So if you have, you might want to bring condoms because not every club provides them, although, I'd argue that they should. Same as lube, they don't always do that. So it's useful to bring that with you, particularly if you've got allergies and that you're going to be allergic to certain condoms or brands of lube and all that sort of stuff. And also to bring any toys that you want to play with while you're there. So, to have it with you is much better and not use it than to be there and desperately needing it and not being able to get it at all.
And most clubs will have lockers, won't they, as well? So,
just to reiterate that the vast majority of clubs that we have ever been to will not have latex-free condoms.
Yeah.
And you kind of alluded to that about the allergies, but that's a common allergy that people have. So if you have a specific condom that you are allergic to, bring it bring what you would use at home yourself.
Also dental dams
as well.
Most clubs don't have dental dams, and some people really want those to play with. So yeah, if there's anything that you do particularly want or need for play sessions, then like you said, bring it along with you. And if there's a particular toy, you were talking about toys, if there's toys that you're like, I know that this gets me off every time, then definitely bring that because you might need it.
So bring Bradford with you then, basically.
Oh, he goes everywhere.
Am I a dental dam? I'm a dental goddamn.
Damn.
God damn.
So we've touched a little bit on, ironically, on etiquette and how to behave. I think some people don't know how to behave, and so this might be their first experience into the lifestyle. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about consent?
So we always go back to fries. So when it comes to consent should be like ordering fries. Consent is freely given. It's reversible, it's informed, it's enthusiastic, and it's specific. So basically, the long and short of it is, if I ask you if you want me to do something, I don't want to feel like I'm coercing you into doing it. I don't want you to do it because I want you to do it. At any point that we're playing, you can go, I don't like this. We need to do something different, or we need to do nothing at all. And that's completely okay. Consent is so important. We often say that consent is king. The first thing that belongs in a sex club is consent, and that's before anybody enters. That's a sort of mentality of the club, and you'll know when you enter a swingers club that's very sex positive, that you'll just have that feeling. You'll feel safe. And I think that's something that we've talked to folks, and they're often quite shocked about, is they're like, well, I come to this club and I feel completely safe. Mm-hmm. And again, our secret spot here in Sydney, the number of single women who are friends of ours that go because they know they can go there and they don't have to worry about, when they say no, they understand that people are going to leave them be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really important to be in a consent-focused environment, because you don't want to be somewhere and then get into a situation where somebody's not listening to your needs or not respecting your needs whatsoever. I dare say that if we find ourselves in those situations, we try to eject ourselves as soon as possible.
Yeah,
because it's not a friendly environment to be in.
And we've been to clubs where you can tell that is not the community that they're trying to build.
Yeah.
It's not as consent focused, and we typically we'll still play with ourselves, but we won't play with anybody else there because of how important that is. Feeling safe and making others feel safe is more important to this community than really anything else.
And when you feel safe, it's a lot easier to have a good time, to kind of let yourself go a little bit and be like, I'm going to enjoy this. This is going to be fun, because you're not constantly worried about what's that person doing over there? What are they going to do to me? What's happening? When you're thinking about that, you're not focusing on your pleasure or your partner's pleasure and what's actually happening in your little scenario.
It's interesting because the first club we went to was very much, I don't think consent was a thing that existed in there necessarily. And it was
very laissez-faire approach to it.
And it did leave quite a bad impression on us in terms of going to an actual club, because it was our very first experience. And it also had, reams and reams of the wanking dead shuffling around with cocks in hands just around the place. So, and it wasn't until we went to a place that had consent very much at the forefront of everything and had much stronger rules and etiquette in place, where we actually felt safe enough to play and enjoy ourselves.
Yeah, and other clubs, might do it a lot better, thankfully. So, the clubs that you do experience where consent is a very much a laissez-faire focus, thankfully, aren't an abundance, I think. And it takes time to find a good club, I think, where you do feel safe.
And it's interesting because I feel like this could be this is a full podcast conversation that we could do. We've done multiple conversations about consent, and the fact that so many people go, oh, that takes the sexy out of it. I completely disagree. Because again, part of being sexy is knowing that you're in a position that you can be safe. Feeling safe is sexy.
And it also doesn't have to be a really long, drawn out conversation. It can be a quick 30-second, 1 minute. What are your limits? What's okay? What's not okay? Even, may I touch you? Can I kiss you? Just a quick little something. It doesn't really have to be, or is this okay? And just a little something. It doesn't have to be like a super in-depth, okay, now let's sit down and draw up a contract here.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be anything like that.
And just to call them out, oftentimes we hear the consent isn't sexy from typically the male of a partner of a couple, which is always fascinating because they're really interested in consent once they find out I'm bisexual. So it's one of those things that it's like, all right, cool. It wasn't important until you found out I'm bi. Suddenly we're less interested in you. Because that's what happens. Consent is for everybody. It's for both the receivers and for the givers to know what they're allowed to do, and that way you're not always second guessing. Can I do this? Should I do this? And you, like Angela said, you can have this conversation in 20, 30 seconds before anything starts.
And I think even if you're embarrassed or afraid of that conversation at first, the more you have that conversation, the easier it gets. And you develop a pattern as well that works for you. And it was one of the really things that really struck us when we went to Desire back in November, was the sort of elevator speech at the beginning and that conversation around things. And, we hadn't encountered it to that level, but actually once you got into the swing of things, it became second. Yeah, thank you. It became second nature, and actually it became something that we genuinely missed when we left it. Of course, we can still carry that on and take that with us, and help it live on in different ways here. But actually, that the way that was done was a real, probably the first time that we'd seen that done to that level.
Yeah, I think it was very clear that consent was a systemic kind of force underpinning everything you did, and you almost didn't have to worry about it once you kind of realised on day one that it was there and it would not be broken.
And it became very sexy very quickly,
yeah.
But it did take
Yeah. And just to build on what you're saying, I'm assuming you're talking about the Life on the Swing Set takeover.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Because we've gone to Desire at other times, and consent wasn't nearly as much of a focus as it is during the Life on the Swing Set takeover. And it is. A lot of people are like, oh, that's not sexy. But like, it's kind of fun to go, oh, all right, cool. All right. So this was the last time I was tested. This is what I was tested for. You know, this is how we always play. This is the safety measures that we use, where we use condoms for this. And you play to the safest and sexiest person in the room. And like, that's just it. And they're like, all right, cool. Now we know, like, we know all the rules of the game. We don't have to guess.
Yeah.
And I think that takes so much pressure off of me, because as somebody who is a classic overthinker, and I think Mrs. H is probably more similar to me in that case than even.
Are you accusing my wife of being an overthinker?
I know, right?
J'accuse, Bradford.
Honey, I'm as shocked as you are.
I am an overthinker, you're right.
But it is one of those things that, you know, I think you and I are constantly overthinking, what can I do? Am I making this person uncomfortable? Am I doing this right? And part of having that consent conversation is making sure that you don't have some of those thoughts.
And it also gives you a bit of a guidebook as to how things are going to go. And so once you know what's allowed and what's acceptable and what people like and what they don't like, just a quick little overview, even, it really kind of gives you an idea as to, okay, this is what play is going to look like with these people. And it gives you the comfort and the knowledge of this is what's happening. And then it makes it so much easier to actually get into it and to have fun with it.
So we talked a little bit about desire there. And, you know, I guess as one of the sort of biggest resorts or biggest sort of lifestyle things that one can chuck oneself at, not a sentence.
A lifestyle holiday, then.
Yeah, a lifestyle holiday, I guess. Have you got any thoughts around going on one of those?
Mate, I have thoughts about all kinds of shit.
Yeah, I know you do. That's why I'm asking you.
Look,
I will start off by saying that it is very full on. So if you're new to the lifestyle, it can be very overwhelming. But at the same time, because most of the swinger resorts or swinger friendly resorts are clothing optional as well. So if you just like to be naked and you just want to be around other people, it can be good to go as well. But it can be very full on. And so I think it just kind of depends on what your expectations are. If you want to jump in with both feet or if you just want to dip your toe in.
I would say my advice to folks would be, don't just go by yourself. Don't pick a week and go some random week. Do some research, find groups that go, because there are so many takeovers and mid takeovers and just small groups that go to these locations. Find a group that you have something in common with. Because again, it goes back down to the ease of flirting. If you and I have something in common, whether it's something like the Life on the Swing Set takeover, whether it's another podcast takeover and you listen to that podcast and you like what they say, whether it's some other group of people who happen to go to one of these swinger friendly resorts, go with them. Because that makes life so much easier, because you tend to have these pre-conversations, whether it'll be on some sort of chat mechanism that you can talk to people before you go, which builds that excitement. Then once you're there, you already have something in common. You're all there as part of a group. And just having that commonality can make breaking the ice so much easier.
Absolutely. And I think you touched on it where you said it can be overwhelming when you first walk into that environment. And, you know, we went after being in the lifestyle for a good year and a half, 2 years or something, and we found it incredibly overwhelming. You know, we'd experienced some clubs, but actually we hadn't been to an environment where there were so many people naked and so much stuff going on. So it took us it took a good day for us to find the groove of that. And that was even with a group of people and, you know, that we'd met before.
Yeah, there's some decompression, I think, to be had when you get into that kind of scene and you're overwhelmed, and it's easy to be overwhelmed and then try and fix that by having a few drinks just to make yourself feel better, and then that rapidly descends into madness as well. So you've got to give your time to adjust if you do go.
I think research is probably the biggest key to a lot of this, is to try and take out the unknowns, and then, you know, when you do rock up, you have a level of understanding of what's going to happen, what you can expect, and try and think through what, how you're going to handle it all.
Also, when you're going to a resort, it's good to remember how long you're going to be there for. If you're going for a long weekend, like 3 or 4 days, or if you're going for an entire week, whatever it is, it can really add to that overwhelming. And at some point, you will likely need a break from it all. And just to know and to remember that it's okay to take time away from everybody, that you can go lay on a beach bed for a few hours. You can just hole up in your room. Just if you need to get away, you can get away from everybody, because it can get to be a lot when you're there for multiple days in that environment. It's different than going to a club where you're there for just a few hours.
But even that, I was going to touch on build on what you just said, was there's no shame in any situation, be it club or be it resort, in taking a moment for yourself.
Yeah.
You and your partner going away to a quiet space and regrouping for just a little while, whether that's a few moments at a club, whether it's a few hours at a resort. There's nothing wrong with taking that break and kind of pulling back for just a moment and regrouping.
Definitely helps, and I know that we did that.
Oh, we did. Yeah, we needed an evening where we just went off for a few hours and just reset and had a cuddle, and
that made all the difference. Actually, that was enough for us to recharge and then go out and face the madness once again before jumping into it. Of course, the other big thing that we found with going to resorts was around all the costuming, and that you don't necessarily have to do, but we found it was incredibly fun getting stuck into that. And
I think the more you put in, the more you get out, definitely. If you really try and put yourself into it and have fun, then you will reap the rewards of that, and you'll have a good time.
I think
you don't have to.
It's a great way of giving people in. Again, if you go in and you put some effort into having a nice costume, the chances are people will want to come and talk to you about it. And especially if it's to do with with the Life on the Swing set takeover, there were a lot of nerdy costumes going on, which for me was amazing because
conversation starters.
Yeah, absolute conversation starters.
It also gives people a bit of an insight as to who you are, because with any of the themes or any of the costumes, they can be interpreted a lot of different ways. And so it's always interesting to see how people do interpret it and how they make it their own. And that gives you a bit of insight as to their personality and what they like, and if you're going to be interested in them or match with them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
go ahead.
No, well, I was about to wrap things up, but if you've got more to add, please chuck in.
Shocker, Bradford's got more.
I was just going to add back to that costume thing, because a lot of the swingers clubs and most of the takeovers and most of the resorts will do some sort of quote theme nights. If you're not somebody who likes to get dressed up, you don't have to. So it's very much at desire. If you wear a t-shirt that's in theme, or hell, even if you just decide not to show up to the theme night things. I mean, there are event organizers who don't like to dress up, so they just don't show up to those things, and that's completely okay, because it's not their thing. I think that's one of the great things about the community itself, is that there are venues in which you can really throw yourself at and be all in, and then there's parts of it that you can kind of take it back and not be as all out there.
And ultimately, I think more than what you're wearing or whether you're in theme or not in theme or whatever, I think it's more about your attitude.
Yeah.
Do you have a positive attitude? Are you there with good intentions? Are you in a good mood? Are you, somebody that people want to approach and want to talk to and want to be around and interact with? So definitely have a good attitude, and pay attention to that as you're going into things. And if you're in a really shit mood and not having a good day, maybe it's not a good time to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
That argument in the car isn't going to help you.
No.
It really doesn't.
No,
and then finally, because I know you want to wrap this up, I would say next day, my advice is go to breakfast, go to brunch, go to lunch, whatever time you wake up, depending on how big of a night you've had, and go over the night. Talk about everything from the meal you had before, to why you chose what you wore, to that was a rhyme and I didn't mean it, to if I could rhyme with mean it, that'd be amazing. But to go over the whole experience with your partner and talk about things that stick out in your mind, things that you really liked and things that you really didn't like, because then that will help you craft and mold your future experiences if you want to do it again.
Absolutely.
That is good advice. And plus it's fun. So if you had a really good night, it's good to, relive it and go back over it.
And a perspective that maybe you didn't have. The number of times Angela has told me that stuff has happened, but my face was between somebody's thighs for like 40 minutes. I didn't see any of that shit. Well, geez.
Well, one of my favourite shows that we've done is talking about the night that we all went to our secret spot together. And because what I love about this so much is that it gives you that whole 360 view of everything that happened in the club pretty much from about 5 different perspectives. So I think the A Slut did a show on the same thing and talked about his version. You did your version, we did our version. And between it somewhere is this beautiful story that encapsulates what happened on the night. But some of that stuff we had no clue that had gone on, and it wasn't until we heard your perspective, or
joined all the dots.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So it's
like, oh, that's what happened. Okay, cool.
So having that conversation afterwards, I think, is vitally
it's really,
important,
really
because
important.
you do get to find out what's going on, but also it helps you emotionally connect with the story and write your own history in a way, and make sure that you get the best out of that experience, which I really like.
Yeah.
So guys, any other little top tips for people that are thinking about going to a club or resort before we close this one down?
Do it. Have fun.
Do it. Have fun. And above all else, attitude is everything. When you have a positive attitude going into something, you're much more apt to have a positive result coming out of it. If you go in thinking something's going to be bad, remember, Brian, whether you can or you can't, you're right.
Well, thank you very much to both of you for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure seeing you and talking to you. Thank you for our silent guests who have remained silent because
they've been very well behaved.
I don't know if you guys have been watching, but our chat has blown the fuck up with them.
Has it? I haven't looked.
Yeah, there's been a lot of naughty things.
Well, I've been trying to keep the show on the road, so I'll have a look at that.
Yeah, he's been driving safely.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking after us all.
I've been reading and trying to respond a little, and like,
yeah, we did.
Somebody has discovered they like boobs. That's all I'm saying.
That's a good discovery. So before we finally close this thing down, where can people find you? Where should they go to find more By the By stuff?
Well, they can find us normally out of quarantine at our secret spot. Right now, they can find us at our apartment. No, if find us By the podcast. We talk about all things sexy. We've been going on for 200 plus episodes. There's some terrible episodes and there's some really great episodes. I'll let you figure out which ones are which. But they're on all podcasts, everything from Apple to Spotify, Stitcher, Acast, whatever. That you can find us there. All of our socials are Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We are at By the By Podcast, so you can find us there, or email us, please, at theatomsoflove@gmail.com.
And our website as well, www.bytheby.com.au.
That's why I keep her around, because I forget the website every time. And she recently redid the website, so I should probably pay more attention to it.
And a very pretty thing it is too.
Oh, shut up and tell her more.
Well, thanks very much, guys. We shall catch you soon. Thanks for taking part.
Yeah, we need to have you on our podcast.
Yeah.
But we'd love that. You know that very much.
Yes, you can talk about British things.
Oh, God, don't get me started.
I'll talk all about
You
my
just
British
want me on
thing.
there so you can poke fun at me, don't you?
I do. It's true.
Yeah, I
I want to poke more than fun, baby.
Have fun poking.
You betcha.
So what's your favourite club?
My favourite club?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
A
golf club or
a chocolate club.
Yeah.
Do you remember those?
Well,
Club
if you
club
like
biscuits?
a lot of chocolate on a biscuit, join our club.
Yeah, I used to love the fruit ones.
Yeah.
Hated the orange ones.
What were the golden ones?
Oh, I don't even know why they were gold. I think they were supposed to be some extra chocolatey special one.
I don't think they were clubs, though. I think they had a different name, but I can't remember what that name was.
Oh, I don't know.
They had a sort of like a caramelly kind of texture.
Yeah, like I don't know, but they were extra gold.
Extra gold.
Looked like they should be really quality things.
That's fair enough. So if you remember the chocolate bar that was gold, Please drop us a line and
was that
get in
about?
touch. Anyway, thank you very much to our special guests. You were absolutely awesome and amazing as per normal.
Yes.
And, it was very nice to catch up and see them again.
Always fun.
Always fun. But your favourite club, Mrs. H?
So in terms of clubs that we would like to go to, if we could leave our house.
If we could leave our house, what would be your favourite club?
Yeah, I think Vanilla Alternative
Vanilla Alternative?
is probably the one I come back to most as a club that is nice for me. Yeah, definitely.
And what club are you looking forward to going to the most that you haven't been to before?
That I haven't been to before.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my days.
Oh my Christ. Let me think. I don't know. I actually don't know.
What about that Donkey Dick's place?
Oh God, no, thank you. No. I remember seeing a picture of their lockers on their website, and it put me right off.
Bristol Gardens?
Oh, we haven't been there. Yeah, I'd like to try that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bristol Gardens at some point.
At some point.
When Coronageddon has stopped, we are coming.
So 2023 then.
2023, we are coming
We are
on
there.
for you. Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
What's your worst club?
Should we be saying what our worst club is? Yeah, why not?
A certain way.
It was Angels. Oh my days, that was a shit club.
Well, I think
No,
actually,
it wasn't the club that was shit. Maybe it was more a combination of factors, like the people who were there, maybe on the night, the experience that we had. I don't know. Overall, it was not a great mix of things for me, and I would not go back.
What's your favourite foreign club?
Oh. Have we been to a foreign club?
Only once.
Oh, no. I was thinking, wait, what?
Wait.
Oh, well, we went to our secret spot.
There we go.
Yeah.
Is that your favourite?
What's the only one?
There we go.
Default.
Default.
Excellent.